Sorry, hello. Hello, and welcome to What's Next. It's the Indy NXT Road Series here from Fuji Speedway here at the base of Mount Fuji in Japan. Getting to the final couple rounds here in 2026 Season 1 for the Indy NXT Road Series. Season that's seen many dominant performances from Luke Mansky Racing Esports' Jarrett Corey on his bid to the Indy NXT title. Sophie, what are we in for here from Fuji tonight?
Well, at an absolutely picturesque track with absolutely stunning cars, I expect a lot of overtakes, as if Fuji is known for one thing, it is that gargantuan front straightaway leading into the tight turn one, so expect possibly some argy-bargy at the start, but there's going to be a lot of passing, and this is the layout without that incredibly tight chicane in the technical sector 3. So there'll be another passing zone in the start of the third sector as well. But for the most part, I expect a lot of high-speed corners, a lot of precision driving, and perhaps more dominance from the Luke Mansky Esports team.
Yeah, they come in as cars number 1 and 2 tonight with Jarrett Corey and Logan Edwards fresh off their runs in the IndyCar Open Series. Corey finishing 4th. Edwards facing a bit of difficulties. We're rolling into qualifying here, and we will cut 2 cars out on course. There's the likes of Edson Toole with a very shiny IL-15 there. But let's actually watch with the current championships points leader of Jarrett Corey as he navigates the course here to start off qualifying. See what he opts to lay down here as the session gets underway. Let's quickly run through those point standings as they stand coming into this race. You see Jarrett Corey at the top of that list sitting on 1,368, some 232 points clear of Hamilton Pereira Ruiz in second. You got Frisky Frankie, Frank Wynn in third. Last week's winner and Daniel Falkingham from Road Atlanta, he's 4th. Giovanni Blackerby won the race earlier tonight here from Fuji. He's 5th. Tim Van Grusven, the reigning series champ, is in 6th. Sanchez Bomer down the rest of the order. You see the likes of Indy Kirchenbauer down in 19th. Vitor Popst, winner from a number of races last season, he's inside the top 15. Alan Mosley up there as well. So certainly a good way to go left in this season here for drivers in the Indy NXT Road Series, looking to maybe make up a spot or 2 in the point standings before we get to the end of the season, where we round it out in week number 12 at Adelaide.
Yes, we see Jarrett Corey here wrapping up, I believe it's going to be his first lap onto his second, or just, starting his first lap. Hard to get an idea of where we are in the qualifying session. So you see that Luke Mansky Esports machine around turn number 1. It's obviously been a dominant season, but we have seen some mistakes. Jarrett had that spin at Road Atlanta in the wet. But it's just been an absolutely pleasure to watch Jarrett work every week with that machine, and just how he manages to kind of extract the most out of it, especially since these are fixed setups. Everyone in this race is effectively running the same car, Jacob.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing we've learned kind of over the course of this series evolving in the first couple of seasons here is there's actually a lot of adjustment that these drivers have, especially over the course of races as those tires start to wear, to kind of manage how this car evolves and the tires come away from them over the course of long runs. As Nathan Ray will shoot to the provisional pole with a 25.201. We'll see what Corey has to answer with that as he works his way down the front straightaway here. And you kind of see how through that closing sector there, he's having to kind of fight the wheel through those very quick undulating corners that kind of wrap up into this long front straightaway here. As he'll go provisionally on the pole with a 124.712. Kind of about roughly where we expected times to be heading into tonight, just given the kind of speed we've seen out of drivers over the course of the season. That seems like right on the money for Corey as we watch him navigate his second of 2 qualifying laps here.
Yeah, and Giovanni Blackerby there in P2 is 4/10 back. That's a pretty substantial margin between the number 1 machine, Jarrett Corey, and the number 6 machine of Giovanni. There's a couple more people to set some lap times. So we shall see how the times shake out as Corey is on that backstretch. This corner that he's currently going through, that high commitment right-hander, is probably the next best passing opportunity on the track. And of course, you have the technical third sector here. There's a lot of different viable lines here that can really work. And then, of course, that all tightens down to that final corner, and getting a good run off of that sets you up for a good lap time in the next lap.
Yeah, Edwards will improve to provisionally second on the board. That'll put the Luke Mansky cars provisionally on the front row as we get to the final couple minutes of qualifying here. Corey will improve to a 1:24.306, well clear of his previous time. That puts him almost 7/10 clear of his Luke Mansky teammate in Logan Edwards as it stands. And we'll see if anybody's got anything to answer that dominant performer in Jarrett Corey here in qualifying.
Yeah, and incredibly tight margins between P2 and P3. As Logan Edwards ran a 1:24.989, Giovanni Lackerby 1:25 flat. So only 0.02 of a second separating P2 and P3.
Yeah, very tight through the rest of the order there. You see Nathan Ray just 0.2 adrift of that. Edson Tools another one from that. The top five separated by a total of 1 second as it stands. We've still got a couple cars still circulating the track. The likes of Jacob Oboslak, Ellis Spice out there setting time. Georgie Tripsick has yet to set a time here in qualifying. We'll have to see as that continues if anybody's able to challenge near the front of the field here. But I imagine we're going to see kind of everybody have put down their best so far. We'll see as Oboslak gets closer to the line if he manages to improve on his time. He currently sits 7th. So you hear kind of the pit lane alarm there go off.
Yeah, that alarm is very distinctive, and I think pretty much every track in iRacing now has it, so you can hear whenever someone is pitting. The kind of tricky thing about this final sector, Jacob, is for that last corner, you're kind of wanting to open the car up as you have that increasing radius corner before it, but then you have that tight final corner that you need to slow the car back down for and hit the apex of, and not carry too much speed on the entry so that you can really put the power down on exit.
Yeah, we were kind of seeing it from our aerial shot here that I believe Julian Altena has once again provided for us. We'll give him his due for giving us this nice footage to kind of look at the sights of the Fuji Speedway here. And you could see even through the middle sector here, there's a lot of corners that you kind of have to arc really, really wide and tuck into the insides of in rather quick succession, kind of furl the wheel on down and then unfurl it back out. And getting onto the power, particularly in that final sector, I think is going to be one of the trickiest things that these drivers have to manage, especially as you're getting onto that very, very high-speed front straightaway that is so long. The last thing you want to do is kind of lose any battle you have before you even get onto that straightaway. Overlook kind of that final sector there with the very tricky corners that we were describing.
Yeah, and I just want to state that, like, one of the key things here I think to watch for is push-to-pass usage on that big, long straightaway, Jacob, because, again, it's so critical for lap time, and that push-to-pass gives you extra horsepower. So even if you're maybe not necessarily setting up a move, you might want to maybe push it just to either pull a little bit extra gap, maybe put someone just out of draft range if possible, or in general, just maybe try to close down a gap for someone who has escaped the draft envelope. It'll be curious to see how that evolves over the course of the race.
Yeah, 15 laps, 14 laps of push-to-pass available. Can't use it on that opening one. But we're getting drivers starting to grid up for the race here tonight, and we'll see who's able to come out on top here from Fuji Speedway as we make another trip over to the country of Japan for Indy NXT Series competition. We'll get that starting lineup rolling here right about now. It'll be Jarrett Corey once again on the pole for Luke Mansky Racing Esports with a 1:24.306. The only driver who broke into the 124s is his Luke Mansky Racing Esports teammate in Logan Edwards. Will be Jacob Oboslak starting in the third spot. Giovanni Blackerby, my apologies. He'll start third alongside Nathan Ray in fourth. Edson Toole will line up fifth. Jacob Oboslak will line up sixth in row number three. David Piazza will line up seventh alongside Indy Kirchenbauer. The reigning Indy NXT Oval Series champ, known as the Prodigy, will line up eighth. David Tuta will be ninth alongside Rogue Racing's Ty Keela. That iconic Lucky Charms livery he's sporting on that IL-15 makes it out for another appearance. Chris Wetz will line up 11th. Good to see him back out here in Indy NXT competition. Ellis Spice, the first driver not to take time, will line up 12th. Malte Moser will be 13th. Georgie Tripsick will round out the 14-car field in the 14. And we have drivers eager and ready to go here from Fuji, as the pace car will likely roll off here shortly, as all 14 cars have taken to the grid. Wayne Campbell chiming in chat asking if this is full Fuji. Technically, no. This is Fuji without its kind of very tricky chicane that follows the end of 300R. So we'll be omitting that and kind of just doing a hard right onto a relatively short straightaway and working into the final couple of corners here. And we'll kind of put that on full display through the opening lap here. Jarrett Corey leads the field. And they're working through that final sector now. Trying to get underway here from Fuji, round in the final corner, onto the front straightaway. Pace car will pull off eventually.
Yeah, and it's quite a long way between when that pit entry is and when the start-finish line is. So be curious to see when Corey chooses to launch. And remember, if you're Logan Edwards, you can't pass Corey before the green is declared. So.
Yeah, pace car will pull off there. We'll get the field under control of Corey. Corey's going to wait, and he's going to launch now, fairly early on, following that pace car pulling in. He'll take an early lead. They'll be 3 wide behind him.
Yep, and it looks like Blackerby got a better start and is going to have the inside line into turn number 1. So Logan Edwards might get shuffled down the order a bit there. Yeah, so far, everyone making it through turn 1 cleanly.
Yeah, Edwards will hold it tough on the outside there. You'll see him tucking behind Blackerby, heading off to the left-hander here. They'll navigate 100R, I believe, is what this corner is referred to as. Drivers taking it very, very tight through here. Corey's starting to stretch his legs already as he's out to 3/4 of a second.
Yeah, and you can kind of see Logan Edwards looking for any way around Blackerby there. He is probably going to try and set something up into 300R. Actually backs out of it, sees the better of it. But instead tucks on the inside here as they enter sector 3. Again, there's multiple lines, so maybe being on the outside here might not be the most advantageous, but it does set him up, set possibly having a better line through the other compressor sector 3.
Yeah, you see Indy Kirchenbauer a bit further back here, get to the outside of Piazza briefly. They're going to tangle off the final corner ever so slightly. Ty Keeler's going to try to follow Kirchenbauer on through down the front straightaway here. Keep in mind, these drivers aren't going to get push-to-pass available until after they cross the start-finish line. So these guys are running full tilt off the corner, 3 wide down the front straightaway. 4 wide. Kirchenbauer is also going to lose out on that battle overall as Ty Keela will shoot up to the 7th spot. Get it down 2 gaps on the screen, get an idea of how far adrift Corey's already flown. He's almost 2 seconds clear of the field in that number 1 IL-15 for Luke Mansky Racing Esports. Rest of the field kind of separated by about 1/4 to 3/10 of a second between each car now.
Yeah, and you know who is smiling a little bit, maybe not so much because it's at the expense of his teammate, but Corey is probably happy that Blackerby got around Logan there at the start. Because it means that while those two fighting allows him to stretch his legs even further, not really having to worry about what's in his mirrors, as Logan Edwards has Nathan Ray in the number 4 machine. and his mirrors to worry about now, as Logan Edwards currently, after a disappointing Indy Open race, now has his mirrors full of the Canadian of Nathan Ray.
Yeah, Edson Toole has made it by Jacob Obuslack off the final corner here. They'll be working down the front straightaway. Both drivers on the push to pass. Corey will go purple with a 1:24.305. That basically matches his time from qualifying, so certainly getting up to speed very, very quickly early in the going as we work on to lap number 3.
Yeah. And Nathan Ray found his way around Logan Edwards on the front straight, used the draft, used the push to pass, and was able to navigate his way around the Luke Mansky source machine of Logan Edwards.
Yeah, we'll move Edwards down to 4th after starting on the front row very quickly, being taken care of by Blackerby and Ray. That'll put the battle back between Blackerby and Ray ahead for 2nd, as Ray one's wide off the left-hander there. Not sure if he'll get a slowdown or anything for that. He'll start to fall slightly adrift of Blackerby now as Blackerby starts to pull away nearly 3/4 of a second now.
Yeah, that's unfortunately just a 1x, Jacob, or fortunately for Nathan Ray, as Nathan Ray looks to have stretched out a little bit further. Logan Edwards, has something happened to Logan? Logan Edwards has tumbled down the order. I was going to say he opened up a bunch. Oh, it looks like he spun into the tight hairpin in the middle sector. And now has it all to do to regain all that all that track position, as he's currently working the back of Ellis Spice.
Yeah, we're watching Edwards back now, kind of working through the long right-hander here, and he's working towards the hard left, if you will, and you see he kind of gets onto the brakes, grabs the curb, and I think that might be ultimately what does him in as he gets onto the brakes, slides it around backwards. It'll shoot him down well down the order, down to 13th, as he has to get his machine back pointed the right direction and under speed. And then we'll have to see if he can mount a charge like we've seen a number of times in Indy NXT competition from drivers making those mistakes early.
Ooh. Yeah, he made a bold move around Ellis Spice into turn 3 there. That's not a normal passing zone because it's such a high commitment corner, but he made it work. So move Logan Edwards up to 12th as he tries to march onward to reclaim all of the track position he lost there.
Yeah, we're starting to see Indy Kirchenbauer work over Ty Keela for the 6th spot. Those two drivers you saw early on in the going try to mount a charge down the front stretch past a couple cars. Oh, big slide for cars ahead. That's going to be Obuslack having a bit of a slide into the left-hander here. He'll fall down the order, down to 10th. See if he can recover.
And it's so easy to do that here, Jacob, because, again, a lot of these corners, right, there are a lot of decreasing radius, and they're one right after the other. So it's just so easy to possibly put a little bit too much dab of the brake, send a little bit too much of that weight onto the front of the car, and just kind of hook, with all the weight being in the rear, kind of just make the rear slide out like that. Obuslack thankfully caught it and looks to have not lost too much, as Kirchenbauer has gone around Ty Keela.
Yeah, Kirchenbauer will move up to the 5th spot now. Ty Keela will be under fire from Mr. Piazza behind him, and then David Tuta will be the 8th spot. Malte Moser and Jacob Obuslack kind of round out this train. Chris Wetz hanging just off of it. These cars all sitting about 9 to 11 seconds adrift of our leader, Jarrett Corey. He's now gotten over 4 seconds to Blackerby behind him.
And he just set a 1:24.0, Jacob. Corey has seen the chaos behind him and clearly wants no part of it because he is streaking away from it. Just absolutely putting on a clinic here.
Yeah, for context, the fastest lap from anybody else in the field would actually be Nathan Ray, as we see Ty Keela under fire from Piazza for the 6th spot.
Ooh, Piazza up, taking the 6th spot there.
We'll hop back to that. Fastest lap aside from Corey's 1:24.0 would be Nathan Ray in the 3rd spot with a 1:24.708 just a couple laps ago. So that's nearly 3/4 of a second slower on the fast end for anybody else in the field. Ty Keela looking to the inside.
Ooh, yeah, an aggressive move, switching this way and that way. Oh, looks like a little argy-bargy there on the exit with Piazza. Because now Piazza has the Red Bull machine of David Tuta. not David Tuta, Moser on the outside. Moser leaves the check surface, and they make contact! He rejoins unsafely there.
Yeah, the 12 went wide, and ultimately contact made heading off into 100R. They'll get back going, but that'll put them all the way to the tail end of the order between the 12 and the 13.
Yeah, and the 12 is missing a wing, or at least was.
Yeah, we'll see if he's got a front wing on that IL-15. Looks like it's at least on there, maybe not in one piece. Looks like maybe the right front end plate has broken off of that machine. No, not quite. But nonetheless, Moser down the order in that Red Bull-inspired livery for him. They'll put him down the order, and then it'll put the closest battle on track now between Obuslack and Logan Edwards, as Obuslack's looking to fend off Edwards as they head down the front straightaway.
Yeah, for sure. And it looked like Mauser's wing was knocked off, and then iRacing forgave the damage. I believe the iRacing might forgive your damage, but it won't forgive your incident points.
No, it will not. We're almost going to see them go 3 wide once more down the front straightaway. Edwards has the inside line on Obuslack heading off into turn number 1 here. That's going to be Chris Wetz just behind them here. Edwards will take 8th back as he continues his charge back through the order following the spin just a couple laps to go. Jarrett Corey now almost 5 seconds ahead of Giovanni Blackerby in the 2nd spot, as Nathan Ray's looking to close that gap up just 0.3 adrift.
Yeah, it seems to me that with a lot of parts of this track, it's just so difficult to set up a pass. If you're in this 3rd sector, it's going to be something opportunistic. It's going to be someone made a mistake, got a bad run off the corner, maybe a little bit of wheel spin, and they don't get the drive that you want. And so it's going to be, the passing opportunities are going to be in those heavy braking zones, not so much in the tight, twisty stuff that you see in Sector 3.
As we watch Blackerby and Ray navigate the front straightaway, they're on the push to pass a good bit all the way down it. Ray's going to stay on it for a good while longer than Blackerby. Look to the inside here, try to make that move stick. Blackerby's going to try to look for the undercut as Ray gets a little bit of a wiggle off the corner here, and they're going to be set up for this next left-hander almost side by side.
Yeah, Blackerby not quite there, but he's able to take that entry a lot wider, and so he was able to carry a lot more speed through it. Ultimately, nothing he could really do with that speed, as just Ray had positioned the car in such a way that really couldn't get around him. So excellent defensive positioning from Nathan Ray, and a valiant attempt from Blackerby, as now he's going to be the one on the attack into 300R.
Yeah, heading through Dunlop, working our way into that final sector with the very tricky right, left, right switchback that they've got. A lot of very, very tight, decreasing radii corners that these drivers have to navigate. You see Ray again get loose off that corner, working back onto the straight there, and then now back onto the front straightaway again, getting loose off the corner. Starting to see maybe the effects of the tire wear here as we get just past the halfway mark.
Yes, he takes, Ray runs all the way down to the pit wall, forcing Blackerby to go around the outside, braking on the racing line into turn number 1. I think Blackerby doesn't quite clear, so Ray will hold on to the position. But maybe Nathan Ray being a little too aggressive with the loud pedal, and that's kind of causing him to lose momentum off the corner and allow Blackerby to kind of set up those runs that we just saw into turn number 1.
Yeah, Blackerby had a shot at it, ultimately got stuck on the outside lane trying to go for it. Bit of a lock there for Blackerby into the left-hander here. He'll run wide. That's going to set him on the back foot through the rest of this lap here. Maybe allows an opportunity for Ray to get him a bit of a gap built up before they make it back to that front straightaway. We'll see them work through Dunlop here and then through this final sector, and we'll see if we have the same struggles for Ray here working through this final sector, getting on the power. As we saw seemingly every power zone, he was having difficulties getting that car under wraps.
Yeah, I just want to highlight that Logan Edwards in his march through the field after that spin, currently on the back of David Tuta, working on the 7th position.
Yeah, Tuta in 7th, Edwards 8th, wants that spot from Mr. Tuta. Looked a bit cleaner for Ray that last time through. That gap's a little over 0.4 of a second between himself and Blackerby. We'll keep up on that as this race progresses, but nonetheless, we're watching Edwards carve his way back through the field, trying to work himself further up the grid as we are over halfway now, working lap number 10.
Yeah, and it looks like Corey has kind of put it in cruise control. Here, it's turning 24/7s. Still lapping faster than Nathan Ray in 2nd place, but not quite the scorching pace that we saw with that 24-0 earlier, Jacob.
Some of that, too, might just be the tires falling away a bit, too, right? As we watch Ty Keela now under fire from Logan Edwards for the 6th spot, as Edwards has made it past Tuta for 7th. I think that tire wear is going to be a bigger thing that we've seen a couple races now, is kind of we've got a very, very heavy high-load corners over and over again. There's not really a spot on this track where you're not using up those rear tires very, very heavily. You kind of got a lot of these very reducing radius corners. You've got those very high-speed corners with the likes of 100R and 300R. And then, obviously, that heavy braking zone down into the hairpin is going to do a bit of wear on these Firestone tires as well.
Yeah, with those heavy traction zones as well, like as those tires wear, it becomes so easy, as we saw Nathan Ray was doing, kind of lighten up the rears and kind of spinning them a little bit. But ultimately, what that will do is that heats up the surface temperature of these Firestone tires. One of the things with the tire models in iRacing, they tend to not like this kind of slides and micro slides, as it heats up that surface temperature and lessens the amount of grip that you have. So the more you're spinning up that tire, the more likely you are to spin it up in the next traction zone throughout the lap.
And it's certainly something we've seen a good bit in this series in particular. We've talked to a number of drivers and talk especially about rear wear, which isn't something we've necessarily been accustomed to, particularly on the oval side of things for these cars. You typically hear drivers talk about right front wear and trying to keep that right front as cool as possible. This car, meanwhile, seems to do much more of its tire wear on the rear of the car, which is ultimately where you're putting that power down, given the rear-wheel drivetrain on these formula-style cars. It's going to be very tricky for drivers, especially as we get into the potential for having an IndyCar iRacing style series for these cars, where we're going to see full distance races for these Indy NXT machines with no pit stops, and drivers are going to have to really take care of those tires to make them to the finish.
For sure, Jacob, and we see that occasionally on the oval side, given the some of the race lengths that were there. Obviously, we had the really long race at Myrtle Beach, and some of the really long races as we start to see Blackerby is closing in on the gearbox of Nathan Ray again. Ray has been very twitchy off those traction zones, so maybe he's not taking care of those Firestone tires as well as Blackerby is. But we've definitely seen that tire wear be a factor on the oval side on certain tracks, not so much here on the road.
And Edwards has fallen down multiple spots again. We're going to try to see. It looks like maybe he had issues coming into turn number 1. We've got on the outboard heading into that first corner, getting slowed up, turning in, getting aimed towards the inside of the track here. You're going to see Edwards go for another slide. I'm wondering if maybe he just put it in too much at once, trying to get that car turned in for the corner, and that's going to send him down to 10th spot. So he'll be looking to have to go once again back through the field if he even has an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, we are currently working lap 13 of 15 now. So not a lot of time for Logan Edwards to mount that charge. It looks like he just locked the rears a little bit on entry, just carrying a little bit too much speed, and ultimately locked those rear tires, and that's what sent him into that half spin there.
Now let's ride a lap on board here with Giovanni Blackerby as he's looking to hunt down Nathan Ray for the 2nd spot here. And he's kind of just been biding his time with Ray, as Ray has a bit bigger of a slide off the corner, but seems to be able to get the power down a bit cleaner as a result of turning in off the corner just that little bit quicker. But Seems kind of the game of cat and mouse here, as Blackerby seems to be faster in some corners and Ray in others.
Yeah, that's just kind of the nature of this track. There's certain corner types that certain drivers really like, and Fuji just has a very diverse amount of corners, right? You have the heavy braking zones of turn number 1. You have obviously that hairpin after 100R, and then of course you have those really complicated braking zones in the third sector, and all of those are just very different and require different skill sets from a driver. So if you do this kind of complicated stuff well, but are less confident on the brakes, that can really make it difficult for you to, say, make that lap time consistently on the person you're racing, Jacob.
As we see Ray kind of stretch away from Blackerby as we head down the front straightaway here. Getting on to 2 to go here as Corey will take the flag from Barney for 2 laps left. You know, we got the popsicle sticks out. Giovanni's on the button, getting down to turn number 1. He'll look to the outside here.
That's some really good defensive positioning from Ray there on the entry, as he has a twitch coming off the corner. But Nathan Ray is basically putting himself against that pit wall as a way of trying to make it so that Giovanni Blackerby has to clear him before the corner if he wants to hit the apex. And so he's going to have to go around the outside. Now, there is a potential way for Blackerby to kind of counter that, and we'll see if he tries it again on the final lap here, where if Ray runs it out of the pit wall, you don't have to let Nathan Ray come off that pit wall. You just kind of hold your car there and you kind of squeeze them. As they now enter that third sector, maybe Blackerby, next time he gets a run, just doesn't wash over to the natural racing line and kind of force Ray to take that shallow line that could possibly force a mistake from Ray. Maybe Ray overshoots the corner because of that just awkward radius. Or, you know, it just forces him to make a mistake off corner because, again, he's just trying to make too tight the corner.
Yeah, we saw Ray a bit of a bobble off the final corner here, though. Run down towards turn number 1 once again. Both drivers on the button. Ray will stay in it for longer here. Blackerby's going to have the draft help of that run down the front straightaway here, heading off into the hairpin. He'll be on the outside this time. Maybe looking to make a crossover move here. Not quite. Ray will clear. We'll have to keep an eye on that as they navigate the final lap, and Blackerby's at a push to pass.
Yeah, Blackerby's out of push to pass, and Ray got a much better run off that corner, but doesn't get a good run off this corner. Ultimately, nothing Blackerby can do with it.
And all the while, Jarrett Corey runs away with this race. The gap's going to be likely over 10 seconds by the time this race concludes, and he put himself on the pole in clean air from the get-go and has opted to make every opportunity of that here tonight. Faster lap over lap by as much as 3/4 of a second. He was half a second faster that last time by. And we'll get caught up to him as he navigates off the final corner here. We barely saw him all race long because he just walked away from the field, but we'll make sure he gets on up here for his run down to the line on the button, using up the last of that push to pass before the pit entry there. Work his way to the start-finish line. Give Jarrett Corey another win here in Indy NXT Road Series competition. He will likely extend and or maintain the current points lead he has in the series on his bid towards the championship here in 2026 Season 1.
Yeah, Nathan Ray won out on that battle for P2, with Giovanni Blackerby coming home in 3rd, Edison Toole in 4th, Andy Kirchenbauer, the Prodigy, streaks across the line in 5th. That is your top 5.
Tuta, Wetz, Obaslack, Edwards, and Keela. Keela must have faced some issues at some point in this race to fall to 10th. Malte Moser, Ellis Spice, Jorzy Tripsick, David Piazza rounding out the field, but we'll get to the finishing lineup proper in a moment. But very, very intriguing race from kind of the rest of the field, barring Jarrett Corey, who kind of left the competition in the dust as soon as that green flag came out.
Yeah, Jarrett Corey was on another level today. Absolute domination from the #1 Luke Mansky esports machine. he will find his way into a familiar spot, Jacob, which will be waiting for the interview, as well as the rest of our podium finishers, should they appear. But very eventful race. A lot of people making mistakes, having issues. Obviously, we saw Logan Edwards with his troubles. But all in all, thrilling battles throughout the pack, obviously over P2, but also it was interesting seeing those battles in the mid-pack where we saw people going as many as 4 wide down the straightaways.
Yeah, let's kind of run through the finishing results here proper real quick. Jarrett Corey with the win, 10.640. The margin back to Nathan Ray in second, who will hold off Giovanni Blackerby, 1 second adrift of him in third. Edson Toole will finish fourth ahead of Indy Kirchenbauer, the Prodigy, in fifth. David Tuta in sixth. Chris Wetz, Jacob Obuslack, Logan Edwards, Ty Keela rounding out the top 10. Working our way through the final 4 finishers will be Malte Moser, Ellis Spice, Jersey Tripsick, and David Piazza in 14th. Only car not making it to the line, and the only car not on the lead lap is Georgie Tripsick, will be 49 seconds adrift of race winner in Jarrett Corey. We will get whoever opts to come on up here for the interviews shortly. Not seeing anybody down there just yet, so we'll give maybe a couple moments for them as they regain their breath. Obviously, Jarrett's coming off of running the Open Series race for the IndyCars tonight, as well as this event here from Fuji. Have to hunt down his machine now that I think about it. So we'll find him on the course here shortly. Get him on.
Yeah, there was
here.
several. Yeah, there were several people who also ran the Open. Indy Kirchenbauer, as well as Logan Edwards, and of course the victorious Mr. Corey.
Yeah, we'll get him running down the front straightaway here for what I believe would be the final time there. Get his machine up on the screen, get his very remarkable current started high-low here of all ones. Get him on up here. Jarrett Corey, Jake Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
Yep.
Well, we didn't see a ton of you out there because you managed to put up such a gap to the rest of the field that was battling very hard for every spot. But you had something figured out from the drop of the green here at points running nearly 3/4 of a second faster than the rest of the field. Kind of walk us through what you've maybe figured out here at Fuji.
It's kind of hard to say, because I did a couple laps last night. On my 4th lap, I got into 24s, and I was sort of looking. I actually looked because you showed the on the TNT Discord. You showed the lap records. I saw that was a 26. I was like, okay, cool. My pace is good here. And so I did a bit more practice, got into the low 24s, but it's kind of hard to say sort of what I was doing differently here compared to any other track, or really just in general, because I feel like I do run pretty well here. I need to take a look, but I want to say I've got a pretty long win streak at this layout in particular at Fuji. So I think it's just a case of me already having the track figured out, and maybe it's also some of those slow corners. I might have those corners in particular figured out better in this car than some others do. Thinking back to Okayama, that final sector is a lot like the final sector at Okayama, actually. So it might be a little bit of that. Might be a little bit of also some strength in the high-speed corners as well, because Fuji has some of those. And I've won just about everywhere this season, so I've been strong everywhere. But like Watkins Glen, Zandvoort, those types of corners, and it's all in sort of one package, and I just have it figured out over the whole lap.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of tracks you can kind of harken back to. It reminds you of, obviously, Okayama is probably one of the better examples to use, given it is regionally located here in Japan as well. And as we've kind of noticed throughout the course of racing history, they kind of have certain ways of designing tracks around here. So once you kind of figure out one track in one region, a lot of them kind of flow together similarly. You talk about maybe the likes of Imola and Monza, Mugello in Italy. Kind of those regional similarities, their love of chicanes being probably the most notable with those. But, did you maybe have some adjustments you were making over the course of the race? Obviously, we saw drivers maybe struggling with tire wear, particularly in those traction zones in the closing sector, getting on the power. We saw Nathan Ray in particular getting onto the power through that closing sector and just having the back end of the car kind of slide around beneath him. Did you maybe have something that worked for you in terms of being able to get the power down a bit cleaner than maybe we saw some cars deeper in the field tonight?
Honestly, I didn't. I mean, I didn't. I don't usually change stuff over to race. Here was no different. The iRacing setup here, sort of the baseline was free one on the bars and 53.3% in the brake bias. And honestly, I mean, I moved the front bar down to 2, and then the brake bias back 1%. But I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do to decrease that exit oversteer that you have in a lot of those slow corners because the bar's already as soft as it can go. Um, so it's just be very careful with your right foot. I mean, the second to last corner, I feel like it's really hard to get out of that corner without hitting them at least a tiny bit, or even just having the front end or not the front end, the rear end go around on a corner entry. That's why I only went down to 2 instead of 1, like we normally see at most tracks.
Yeah, certainly very tricky, and ultimately the right foot may prevail for certain. That seems to always ring true in this car in particular, is just being able to manage that throttle application. Sophie, what do you got for Jarrett tonight?
Well, Jared, I mean, I think Jacob covered a lot of the driving aspect, but obviously you did double duty today. You got a fourth place finish in the Indy Open race just before this one. How are you feeling physically, and how do you manage to kind of adjust from driving one car on a completely different circuit to driving one of these Indy Next machines on again a completely different circuit?
Yeah, I'm a little worn out. Between both of those races and also just nonstop practice since last night to today because I did want to get that Indy Open race in at Zandvoort. I've said it a million times before, but I absolutely love that track, and I'm good at Fuji, and I wanted to show up for this as well. So no other choice but to just keep putting laps in, and I think that sort of helped because I was going back and forth between cars at least a decent amount. So I already was used to going from driving IndyCar, Zandvoort, to going into this car at Fuji. So it's just practice.
Practice certainly seemed to prevail very, very heavily, as it always tends to do here in racing competition. Jarrett, you know the drill. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody you want to shout out, floor is yours.
Yeah, P1 Broadcasting for the broadcast, and iCoaching, iPredictor, and Lilac City IT, as well as Luke Mansky Racing Esports, of course. Yeah, that's it.
Well, Jarrett, another dominant win for you here in Indy Next competition on that bid for that series championship. We'll hopefully catch you next week from Mexico City, or hopefully tomorrow night with the Indy Next Oval Series from Gateway. Keep going fast, having fun. We'll catch you next time.
Yep, I'll probably be missing Mexico, but I will be sure to try to show up there for Adelaide.
We'll certainly be looking forward to your next appearance whenever it is. Have a good one, Jarrett. Go celebrate.
Yep. Thanks. See ya.
That'll do it for Jarrett Corey. I have at least a inkling that Giovanni Blackerby will join us at one point, but let's give Nathan Ray his due. He holds on to the second spot here tonight in a very slick-looking Solpec Precision Racing machine. For him, that's not a team or a livery we're necessarily unfamiliar with. I believe the likes of Brandon Roseborough in times gone by has made a number of appearances in those machines. Good to see them back here in open wheel competition with the likes of the Indy Next Road Series. And we'll give Mr. Blackerby a moment to get on in to the interview room. We got to track his machine down. There it is. Get a bit more time for us to maybe get him on up here. He so chooses to do so. But Sophie, kind of talk us through maybe some closing thoughts here before we get to Giovanni here. As to what maybe you thought we saw maybe a bit different tonight as we worked our way through a very, very tough race here from Fuji.
I think this race was a lot about minimizing mistakes. Obviously, Logan Edwards put down a good effort in qualifying to get P2, but as we saw, it was very easy to make mistakes under braking. And one of the reasons why I think we saw that was it was really with the complex series of corners that we had and the heavy braking zones, the demands that you're going to want to make of the car change throughout where you are on the circuit. And so I can't speak for any of these drivers, but I know I would be adjusting the brake bias depending on where I'm at on the track. And I think that's probably why we saw a lot of those mistakes from people sliding a little bit too much in one spot because maybe they went the wrong way with their adjustment or they forgot to make an adjustment. So ultimately, those who didn't make a mistake were rewarded with a good finish, and those who did were ultimately sent down the order.
Yeah, we'll maybe get a bit of additional insight as we've got Giovanni Blackerby working his way on in here. Giovanni, Sophie Connell, Jacob Collins, P1 Broadcast. You got us?
Hello?
You got us, Giovanni?
Yep. Hear you.
Well, I believe this is the first time we've had you up on the podium for one of these. Kind of walk us through the very, very tricky race here we had at Fuji. Obviously, drivers having a bit of a struggle getting the power put down here. Maybe some of the things you figured out here to keep your car in one piece at the front of the field here tonight.
I was just mainly focusing on consistency and making sure I don't spin, and trying to keep my position and not taking very, very risky moves because that could possibly be the end of your race. But
yeah, we saw Nathan Ray ahead of you putting up a very, very heavy defense, especially down that front straightaway off into turn number 1. Kind of walk us through what it takes to maybe have to back some of those moves down very, very late as you enter those very heavy braking zones around a track like this.
you just kind of have to, once they commit to that line, you kind of have to just squeeze them a tiny bit and then let them move over, obviously, before the beginning of the corner. But yeah, he had a great defense. It was very tricky to get around him, which I could not do.
Well, certainly solid finish for you here nonetheless, Mr. Blackerby. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody you want to shout out, floor is yours.
I would like to shout out JW Dodado, Quanta Services, Cars Ohio, Raise MTV, Twisted Tomato, and my mom and dad.
Well, thank you for joining us here on the podium here, Giovanni. We'll hopefully catch you next week as we take on Mexico City here in Indy NXT Road Series competition.
Yep.
That'll do it for the podium interviews here from Fuji. And you know what, Sophie? I think we might have found a driver that might genuinely be younger than Indy Kirchenbauer, and that's a feat.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Prodigy is quite the youngin, as they'd say, and yeah, I think Giovanni has Indy beat there.
We won't make too many assumptions, but we'll assume he's a youngin indeed, but certainly a good mark here in what I believe is their first appearance here on the broadcast here for Indy NXT. But we want to thank everybody for tuning into this. We'll thank Whiplash SimCams for providing cameras for this event here tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night with the Oval Series at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That follows up the IndyCar Oval Series. IndyCar will be 7:15 Eastern Time from from Phoenix. Will be live from Gateway, and then the nightcap will be the Area 51 IndyCar Series at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I do believe. Double check that one on me, and then we'll be rolling in to the rest of the week with the likes of the AMA Grand National Series, the AMA Truck Series, both 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday and Friday. They'll be taking on the Atlanta Super Speedway, and then the Votive Indy Oval Series will be back Sunday night, 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Shane Coker will correct me in the chat inevitably on that one. They'll be live from Michigan for their third round of the season. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. Want to thank everybody who does all the difficult jobs all around the world that allow us to do the fun things that we do here on P1, like bringing you Indy NXT Series coverage here on the channel. Have a good night, everybody. We will catch you next time wherever we find you. Have a good night, everybody.